What's up, everybody? Pretty excited this morning. I don't know why, I just got really excited when I turned on the camera. It's just like, it's one of these mornings I feel really energized. Maybe that's my Makuna working. Last week or so, I've been on this varying herbal, regimen, kind of like on and off, to try to experiment and see how I feel when I sleep with this or with this. And come to this point where I feel pretty good. What I'm trying to do is actually, I've noticed that people's anguish, anger, frustration, it can come from life, but it can also come from poor diet. It can come from, brain chemistry, a million different things. You'll notice a lot of people just like to cause trouble. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Over the years, like when I first started my YouTube channel, I had several people who would, I had very few commenters, but once in a while I would get some random person on there who would comment and be a total dick, a troll. I didn't even know what a troll was back then. And I'd get all mad at him, trying to figure out why. Well, prove your point, you got nothing to say. And I've realized how much I've changed over the last few years. Because even if at that time I was still consciously working on ignoring and just letting stuff go. But now I've been able to finally do it. I meet so many people online every day that you really get a pretty well-rounded idea of what people are willing to say. So a person could sit there and be like this one guy. We just had this discussion about stereos. On one of my videos about vintage equipment, and the videos about why does vintage equipment rival many of the modern receivers of today. Because I've been through 100 receivers and 100 speakers, and I found the pair I like, and they're just the vintage Pioneer with some Sansui, 5-way speakers. This guy comes on talking about how all that stuff's junk, and real hi-fi equipment sounds better, and you don't know what you're talking about. And I said, you're probably right, it does sound better, but you're missing the point. Look at the title again. You're trying to defend something that people can't afford. This is what I'm trying to say, the whole point. Back and forth we went for a while, and finally by the end he says, well, these are the speakers I have in my living room, and these are the speakers I have in my office, and he shows them, and they're really expensive speakers that cost more than my whole system by 5-10 times probably. And I said, you're not getting the point here. I'm saying that you can get a good system, speakers, stereo, and stuff at Goodwill for $100 if you're broke, and you're poor like I am. And this point isn't really about the particular argument. It's just about how people will go on and on trying to prove their point. It's like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You obviously haven't heard this brand before. I said, no, I haven't. And he's like, well, here's one for the same price you're talking about. And I was like, cool, maybe one person can find that. It's just a little amp this big. And like, some people want a big vintage receiver. Does it really matter? I like what I like. And I said, and those speakers don't work for me. They're two-way speakers, and I like mids on my speakers. I said, it depends on what you listen to, and how your ears are shaped, how your room is shaped. And there's so many factors to how things sound good. But this guy was insisting on him having the best because he has it. Now this metaphor goes on to all different types of things. This idea is the right one because this is the one I have, or this is the one I feel. And I was just laughing. By the end of it, he left this comment something like, for anybody reading this thread, like, don't listen to this twat, check out these speakers. He had to call me a twat, So I was like, well, you don't have to call me a twat, douchebag. It's just as immature, of course, but the whole point being that this is how people get when they want to prove themselves. I don't really care what kind of speakers you have, or how much better they are, or how expensive your system is. This was a good example to me of like how people use throw their weight around on a particular subject or idea, and if you get caught up in it by trying to argue that you're right, and you don't have as much information on the subject as they do, then it's not even worth arguing. Maybe you're right, dude. Maybe your stereo's better. I don't care. I don't care. I know what I like, and I know what works for me. And in the years past, I would have probably tried to justify and explain why mine's better, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because I don't care. Mine's not better. That's my point. Nothing I have is better than anybody else's. I'm not better than anybody else is. I'm just a person. The things that I have are just things. I don't own them. They own me. If if I go around associating myself with my speakers or my car, and that's another one. People who associate themselves with their cars, their automobiles, trucks, whatever. People who spend, people who work a minimum wage job but are willing to, buy a $30,000-$40,000 car just so they can drive it to their, Taco Bell job or what, just to show that they have a car that's nice. To me, I say to each his own, and I respect that if that's what's important to you. But I want people to, here, let's put it this way, let's take it another level down. A person may say, well, I don't want people to know my car, I want them to see me, or, I say, no, I don't even want them to see me, I want them to know me. I don't dress fancy or, get my hair all made up or get dressed up nice or anything. I just, I'll go to the store in my sweats or whatever, it's just the average Joe. You stop to talk to somebody, and that's where the truth comes out. That's where you really start to know a person. Very few people I can talk to in this world where I can totally relate to them. And I've come to the conclusion that this is that anybody that I can't relate with on some level, that it's my own fault. If I can't find an understanding with one average person, one-on-one, find something to relate to them with, it's my own fault, it's my own problem. Because I know that as a citizen of this world, we all share these things, these ideas. We don't need to prove anything or show that we're better. Ego is a disguised complex that we all have. When I find my ego coming out, I embrace it and I laugh at it because I do have one. Abandoning your ego completely just opens you up to being completely taken advantage of, if you will. It doesn't mean that you will be taken advantage of, it just means that you can be if you're not willing to defend yourself. Because if you do defend yourself, people consider that ego. So I guess what I can say before I walk away from this is just, everyone's always going to tell you how you could be better or what you should be doing or what kind of things you should have or whatnot. It's just, it ain't worth it. It ain't worth the debate. Too many different people with too many different experiences out there to really, to even compare our experiences to one another. You just think about even how different substances affect people differently, and different sights and emotions come to different people over different things. It's very difficult to understand where another person's coming from without being in their shoes. So just remember that, when we're having a discussion, try to be civil, try to understand, and try to remember that things aren't always the way that we think they are. So I don't know what else to say. I can get my day started.